let's just pray. Heavenly Father, Lord God, we just thank you. We just thank you so much for just being such a mighty and merciful God, for just being El Shaddai, Lord God, the Almighty God. We thank you for all the provisions you give all of us here on a daily basis, Lord God, and just for loving us and always just being there and just being a father to each and one of us. Lord God, we just thank you so much for being so merciful, so mighty, and just so loving. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. So, a lot of you here recognize a younger version of me when I was probably like 10, when I was literally half my height. And most of you, if not all of you, know my dad, Walton. I'm sure a lot of you here know that name. And so, the idea of what me speaking here today is kind of me really presenting my own identity. So when you see me, you're not like, oh, that's Mervin's son. Hopefully, one day, the more I speak here, you're going to be saying, when you see my dad, you'll be like, oh, you're Anthony's dad. So, I'm at the age where I'm no longer hanging on to my parents' coattails, and I'm really stepping into who I am. And so, unlike a lot of pastors' testimonies where they talk about how at the age of 5, their house burnt down, and they watched their parents die as they tried to save them, and then from there on, they committed their life to Jesus Christ. My testimony is nothing heroic or anything dramatic like that. It's a pretty normal testimony. It started my testimony, which is still ongoing because I'm not a pastor yet, and hopefully when I do become a pastor, it'll have a much more developed storyline to it. But I believe that my testimony starts around the age of 20, because my dad, he was always a very strong Christian leader of my house. Many of you know him, know that. And so I grew up as a Christian. I grew up in WCG, and I was always a Christian. And I had a nice life. I enjoyed my life. It was just so cozy. It was so warm. But it's like for most of my life, I would have considered myself kind of a lukewarm Christian, where it's like I don't really go out and do like evangelizing. When you see me, you just be like, you're a Christian. I wouldn't have guessed that. I just don't give off that kind of Christian vibe, but I am a Christian. That's how I kind of felt for most of my life. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being just a regular Christian.
That's right.
But I know when I turned 20, just my entire life in its entirety just changed. Because for those of you who don't know, in a month today, it's the 16th. In 4 days, it will have been 3 years since my mom died. And it happened on April 20th of 2010, and that's a day after my birthday. And so I remember after that happened, something I told her before she passed was that from this day on, I'm an adult. I no longer, I thank her for raising me into the man I am, but from that point on, I would be an adult. And that's how I had this mentality from then on, that I'm an adult now. I can't go crying and running to my mom saying, I need your help, Mom. I couldn't do that anymore. And soon after that, my dad remarried, and he moved to Singapore, which I am now very happy for him. I love Ellen, and I love that they're married, and I love that he's out just being happy. But I remember a year and a half after she passed, I gave a message at my church, New Life, and I was talking about how I went through all these things, I went through all these different emotions and feelings, and I'm done with it now, I'm feeling good. And little did I know, I was really just in the heart, in the just dead middle of that storm of just what was to come. Because I remember soon after she passed, I was heartbroken, like anyone would be after a death. And so what I did was to kind of cope with the pain was I really focused into God. And I really started reading my Bible a lot and spending a lot of time with God. But then I found after a while, I was spending time with God, yes, but I was also kind of running away from dealing with this problem at the same time. And so I didn't cope with it well, since it was the first death I really encountered in my life. And so soon after I gave that testimony, just my life started to change, because by that time my dad had moved out. He moved to Singapore, and my mom was gone. And so I was living virtually on my own. I was living with my second oldest brother in the house I grew up in, but now it had two other random guys in there that were my roommates or my housemates now. The one guy I went to high school with, and one guy my brother went to high school with, and they're just guys just chilling in my house now. I was so used to my house being this nice, homely place where I could get out and be like, oh, there's food on the table. Oh, they're my brothers, my dad, and my cat. And it was, and it was nice. But then my life completely changed. I had to kind of become, well, I didn't have to, but I became a little bit more hardened, because to really live in this world of just being away from your parents and living on your own, you kind of have to be a little bit tougher. You can't just expect things to just fall on your plate for you and just everything be nice and happy for you. And so I felt like I really had to toughen up. I had to force myself to be tough. I couldn't, there was no one I had to go back and rely on and just say, oh, I need help, I need financial help, I'm just hurting. I felt really kind of alone at that time in my life soon after I gave that testimony. And I remember, I've always been a Christian. Let me just prerequisite. There we go. I mean prerequisite. What I'm going to say, but I've always been a Christian, and I always will be. And so after going through this hardship, I remember I started to become this very worldly. Let me put it that way. Put it nicely. I'll explain a little bit of it. But I became very just worldly, and in retrospect, it was good. I got kind of a taste to see how the secular world is, and just how empty and cold it is. And in that time, I remember God, I don't know how old, but God, for some reason, He just gifted me with just a silver tongue. And and a silver tongue can be used good or bad, and at that time in my life, I was using it very badly. It's like I would talk to girls all the time. I would just compliment them, and they'd just fall in love with me. And they're just like, oh, Anthony, you're just so amazing. I know I am. And I would try to be a jerk, but girls in the circle I was hanging out with, they enjoyed it. They didn't want a guy who would just be respectful. They didn't want like a man. They just wanted a boy, and that's how I was acting. I was acting like a child. And so for a good 6 to 8 months, because prior to it was last year around like April. From April to like August, I had this little like wild spree, so to speak. Because before that, I was in a relationship, but in retrospect, I see that it was a very unhealthy relationship. It wasn't a good, God-fearing relationship, and I knew I was with the wrong person now, and so I ended it. But after ending it, I remember really having a very definitive, concrete feeling of like I have no one left. I have no like female in my life that means anything to me, and all I have is just like my brother now, and these two roommates. Since my dad was off in Singapore, I just kind of viewed him as just someone distant, someone I couldn't really talk to anymore. And so during this time, for the 6 month period, I would just go out with just different girls all the time. I would go out to bars and drink with them. I would never get drunk. I know that was Christ in me stopping me. I still had some morality left in me. I thank God that He stopped me from ever doing drugs. I've never done drugs. I never got drunk. But I would go out all the time, and I would just go out and drink with them. I'd go to like a club, and they'd just be dancing on me, and they'd be like, Anthony, you're so smooth, you're so awesome, I just love you so much. And I was like, I don't love you, but I know you love me. And so it's just, I thought I was really enjoying that lifestyle. I thought this is what I wanted. I was like, I grew up my entire life as a super nice Christian kid. I've never drank alcohol before, and I just want to do whatever I want, and that's how I was just feeling. And so at that time, I would just go out, and I remember for a month, whenever I say this, everyone's like, that doesn't seem like you. But for a month, I actually picked up smoking. And it doesn't seem like me. In retrospect, it wasn't me. And I'm so blessed and thankful to God that I never got addicted to it. And so quitting, just one day, I'll tell you in a bit, I just quit. I never had an urge to smoke again. And so I remember in this lifestyle, it was just really empty. And just I would see all these girls all the time, and just how their life was and what they expected out of life and what they expected out of men, and just how a lot of them kind of claimed to be Christians, but they weren't really representing God and representing His love and representing just His purity. And so I was getting sucked into that world, and I remember this one day, I was so ashamed, that's the best word, of smoking, that I never wanted anyone ever to see me smoke. And so I was in Old Town one time, and I was smoking this alleyway. And I remember looking down, and I have this weird thing that I do where if something's been pressing on my mind really heavily, or it's been in the back of my mind, but I've never actively engaged in that thought, or just thought about it, or just kind of dealt with that feeling, just eventually it wells up, and then literally I will just blurt it out without me realizing it, and I'll say, oh, I was thinking that for a while. And so I remember I was sitting in this alleyway, and then I looked down, and I was like, I hate this. I hate what I've become. And so I was just really miserable with everything that was happening, and I didn't know why it was happening. I felt kind of just like I couldn't control what was happening in my life. And so it was so fortunate that this girl came into my life at the time, who I liked for a bit, but it really helped propel me into what I am now. And I liked her for a bit, and I knew that a girl like her would never like a guy who was so unchristian like me. And so I wanted to try to change myself initially for her. I wanted to be a much more Christian guy, a guy who, when you see him, you're like, oh, I can tell you're a Christian. You have such good morals, and you just have this radiance about you that just comes off of you. And I kind of wanted to be that. And so for a good week or two, I was really reading my Bible a lot. And then I remember God spoke to me in the middle of that and said, what you're doing is wrong. Don't do it for her, do it for me. And in an instant, I was like, you're right, God. What I'm doing is wrong. I shouldn't be trying to act like a better Christian. I shouldn't be trying to act like I'm following you, God. I should follow you for your love, because of everything you've done for me in my life. For sacrificing yourself on that cross for me. And so, God really switched me around in that instance once I realized what I was doing. And so, it was fortunate that kind of pulled me in. It was like a fishing hook that kind of caught me in the face. And I started pulling, but for the wrong reason. I started going towards it. But then, once I realized I was already kind of caught up in it. And so, God, just the way God works, I had already kind of fallen in love with Him, and just recommitted my life to Him. And I got enrolled in this internship at this place called IHOP. And I don't know if any of you have heard of it. It's called the Pasadena International House of Prayer. And it's just this nice little building in Pasadena on Lake where they just have right now it's 24/7, but then 24/7 praise and worship. Just at any point in time you can go in there and someone is singing. You can just go in there and you can read a book, you can pray, you can just do anything you want. And so I really like that. So I got enrolled in this internship they had going called the School of Supernatural Ministry. And there I really start to understand God's love, I got a better understanding of what it means to love God and what God's love was just all about. And just kind of learning, as well as this book I'm reading now, which is also helping me learn, but really have this childlike dependency on God where, you can literally do nothing without God in your life, without Him leading you. You're just going to fall into destruction. And so this really helped me in that aspect. It really helped me set my mind forward and straight. And I'm going to go back a second. A year prior to this, because that was in August when I started this internship in 2012. And a year before that, in July, there was a moment where I was speaking at, every year New Life has a camp out, a Memorial Weekend camp out. And this one time I spoke, as Pastor Remy I guess no one was speaking that day. He just randomly asked me, he said, can you speak? And I said, yeah, sure, I'd love to, because I've always had an enjoyment, and I've always gotten joy out of just doing public speaking and really sharing myself with a group of people. And so I remember after that time, Pastor Burmy came up to me when I was eating lunch later that day, and he said, Anthony, I want you to consider going into a pastoral internship with me. And I remember the first time he said that, I was like, oh, no way, I'm not good enough, I am not holy enough, I am not in love with God enough, I don't know God enough, he doesn't know me enough. And so I was like, oh, no, I can't do that. Now I know. And so, fast forward to when I started this internship. I started working for this, or I worked this weekend for this company called, or this church called Foursquare, for those of you who might have heard of it. And what they do is they give out grants to churches, usually small churches, and just they give out grants to help them with just different ministries they have going on. And so I was helping score these grants, and I remember reading through this gigantic, like 50-page application they have to go through. And I saw this part where they talk about the different emerging leaders in their church. And I was reading this and thinking, just this thought was completely out of my mind, but God really just threw it back in there. He said, you're to be one of those emerging leaders in your life. And I just completely forgot about it. I was like, whoa, that wasn't my own thought, that was God. I know that was, I clearly know that was God. And so, immediately after that, literally on my lunch break, I took out my phone and I emailed Pastor Berg, and I was like, hey, I don't know if you still remember that thing you told me like a year ago about the pastoral internship. Is that still there, or is that gone? And he was just so graceful and humble, and he said, yeah, of course it's there. Just, we should meet. When do you want to talk about this? And he was just so excited and ecstatic about it, and I am so thankful, and I praise God for having such a humble and gracious pastor that has been a pastor for almost my entire life. And so I talked to him about this, and the entire time, even now, I was so sure that this is what God was calling me to, because for my entire life, I've had people just kind of hint and kind of confirm that suspicion I had about something in ministry, but I didn't know what, and then it became more clear slowly through the years. And then they're like, kind of like a pastor, maybe. And I remember Pastor Verme was saying how being a pastor isn't just doing speaking. It's not just coming up to this pulpit and just talking to a crowd. Most of it is ministering to people and having just one-on-one conversations and really just helping people and counseling. And that thought didn't occur to me before, but that was a really encouraging thought, honestly, because I found that that's what I enjoy doing. I've seen that in my life, a pattern of just friends coming to me for help because they see me as someone gentle, someone who is not going to just judge them, someone who will listen to them and have something helpful and encouraging and just something insightful to say. And so I really do enjoy that. And so I know that's just one of many aspects of being a pastor. And after hearing that, I was just even more encouraged to become a pastor. And so I talked to him, and I got enrolled in this pastoral internship. And so from then on, up until now, I'm training to become a pastor. And I'm just so blessed and just happy that this is happening. I remember soon after that happened, it kind of just dawned on me and hit me while I was sitting. And I was like, did my life just change entirely? Because I was going to college to become a journalist, to go work for a technological company that reviews gadgets like iPhones and computers and laptops. And that's what I was going for most of my life. I was like, that's what I probably want to do. I'm really kind of sure about that. And so suddenly I was just like, I'm going to become a pastor. I'm going to represent God to a church. I'm going to become this leader that helps people in their problems and lead people to Christ. And it was just such a wonderful mantle to just be put onto me. And I'm just really encouraged by all the support I've been getting from everyone everyone I've told about that, they're just like, yeah, I could see you doing that. And everyone's just so loving and encouraging. I'm just so thankful for my church and just all my friends and family that I have. And just for this church as well. I hope to slowly become a much more prevalent speaker and just a prevalent person in this church where eventually you'll just see me and be like, oh, there's Anthony. And when my dad comes, you're going to go to him and say, oh, you're Anthony's dad? Yeah.
Not the other way around.
Yeah. Your looks come from him. And so I'm just thankful for this church. I'm thankful for everything God's been doing in my life because I can see all the transformation. I'm sorry that this is kind of jumped around. I know I only have 20 minutes. I think I went past that. But if you come approach me after church, I will give you a much more extended look into my life and some things I skipped out. But it's just a very brief summary and look at the past few years of my life.
Amen.